Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. Our tech expert, Brendon Peterson, is joining us this evening to discuss a momentous ruling in the Epic Games versus Google's antitrust case. This landmark decision has the potential to transform the way app stores operate, particularly in the Android space. A judge's ruling found Google to be guilty of monopolistic practices within the Google Play Store, limiting Epic Gaming rather's ability to be able to distribute its games outside of the Play Store. Now, the court ordered that Google were to open up its Play Store to competition for the next 3 years, allowing for rival app stores to exist within the Play Store. This ruling could have been far-reaching implications for the tech industry as a whole. And talking to us a bit more about this evening, we are joined by our resident tech specialist, Brendon Peterson. Good evening, Brendon. Thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Good evening. It's always great to be back.
It's good to have you back. And this time we're not talking about all things that are new and cool and exciting in the
Yeah.
tech or AI space, but we're actually talking about something that can be quite transformative. And for those who
Mm.
are unfamiliar with Epic Games and the Google lawsuit, can you give us a brief overview of the issues at hand and how did Google actually respond to Epic Games allegations?
Yeah, so this is not a new lawsuit. This has been going on for a while. And some of the watchers might remember that Epic Games actually also sued Apple. And that's why in the EU, we've seen such a transformation with Apple's App Store over there in the EU. But now what they've done is they've now taken the fight to Google. And essentially what the allegation is that Google is operating the Play Store, so its App Store, as a monopoly, which, is preventing competition and innovation. So Epic Games is saying that the 30% commission that Google charges developers for things like in-app purchase and those sort of things, they're saying that that's unfair and that Google's control over how apps are distributed is limiting developers' ability to reach their customers and consumers. So they want Google to essentially allow sort of more flexibility for third-party app stores, payment options outside of Google's own sort of systems, which, according to Epic, is going to allow more competition and more of an open marketplace. Google obviously is saying, this is not the case. They're defending the Play Store model, arguing that that 30% commission is standard in the industry. Obviously Apple charges the same, and that's it reflects the value of the infrastructure that Google has built and the security that Google provides to developers and users. Obviously, Google's also saying that Android's open nature lets more people download apps from third-party stores, install them other ways, unlike Apple, and they're arguing that their policies are protecting user data and they're maintaining the quality of apps within the Play Store.
Now, what I also want to talk about is, I mean, this is a really big thing for Epic Games
Mm.
to have done, to take on giants in the industry like Apple and Google. But also, it's a really cool thing at the same time that they've come out being successful in their lawsuit as well. But why do you think, I mean, they've targeted Apple. Google is an even bigger giant to tackle. Why do you think they decided to tackle Google as well?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because in terms of just pure revenue, one would argue that Apple is actually the bigger giant. They're making so much more money than Google is, even though Android devices exist in sort of more parts of the world than iPhones and things like that. But I think in this case really it centers around sort of Google and Android's sort of dominant status as the dominant sort of operating system globally. Because again, as I say, there are more people using Android devices and using Google's Play Store as their primary, sort of means of connecting to apps and the internet and that sort of thing. While even though Apple's App Store makes more money and is also similarly restrictive in many ways, Google argues that Android is open to competition, and I think it's that argument that we're open to competition, even though it's now turning out that they're pretty much as restrictive as Apple, and the dominance in terms of how many people are using the platform. I think that's really what sort of drove Epic to want to take on Google as well.
Now, I know this is probably going to be a very predictive kind of question, but we are curious to understand. Google has already indicated that they do plan to appeal this ruling. What do
Mm.
you think their success rates are, or what are their chances that they will be actually successful in being able to appeal this ruling?
It's the question everyone's asking because when this fight was happening with Apple, Apple mostly escaped unscathed. Again, we look at the EU, where that's the only region where changes sort of were forced into place. But other than that, everywhere else, it's still operating as per normal. I don't know if Google is going to be as successful because just a few hours ago, there was a judge, obviously, that, as you said, found Google to be guilty of monopolistic practices. And now there's already talk, nothing confirmed, but there's already talk about potentially forcing Google to sell off parts of its business. So things like Chrome, Android, Google Play. And Google's already saying if that has to happen, that's going to sort of break those products, which is allowing a lot of people access to the internet and access to information and technology. So I think they're going to fight it hard, but I don't know how successful they are going to be. And I think it is purely because they position themselves as so open. And all these documents and court rulings are finding out that they're not as open as they pretended to be.
And I think the biggest question on everyone's mind, especially if you're new to this whole topic and this whole, Google versus Epic Games scenario and saga, what does that actually mean for us as Android users, as users of Google? What are the implications now of this ruling?
So I'm just going to point out this is not the first time we've seen a massive tech giant face these sort of antitrust things. 1998, I believe it was, Microsoft also, faced antitrust. They were then ultimately told that the company had to be split. They appealed. They were able to win, but what they had to do was be sort of more transparent with the Microsoft App Store, and specifically allowing other sort of software makers to make it easier for them to be able to put this stuff on Windows devices and also be more transparent with their business practices. So I think the best case scenario for Google is that. What it means for us as users of these devices is you're going to be able to start seeing other app stores available in the Google Play Store. So if you don't want to use the Google Play Store, you have something else you prefer, you might see that option available there. You'll be seeing more sort of third-party payment systems. So instead of having to pay for in-app purchases or your Netflix, your Showmax, whatever, using Google's Play system, there could be third-party payment systems, which could be great for Africa. Things like beach payments. All of those guys could potentially, jump on that. And you could get lower commissions for developers. So if you're developing an app and you want to sort of break into the market, you could actually be losing less of your money to Google as opposed to what you would be getting now.
I mean, I can completely understand how this might be hitting Google exactly where it hurts. And I can
Yeah.
understand the decision to try and appeal this ruling because it absolutely is going to impact them significantly. I mean, for the longest time, they've had such a huge amount of control over how we access information, how we obtain apps, the like. So I think it is really, really, something that is hitting them in the right place. But like you said, it also
Yeah.
opens up a lot more opportunity for other companies to come forward, which is, I believe, a good
Mm.
thing. But Brendon, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I mean, this was very insightful. I was really looking forward to this conversation, just to understanding how this actually impacts us as everyday tech users, as everyday Google Play Store users, or everyday gamers as well, just to understand the implications that this ruling has. But it is quite a significant stride that a smaller company to take on two giants like Apple and Google, it is quite significant. And like you said, it also has potential to opening up doors for so many other smaller companies as well to be able to thrive, and potential app users as well as app owners as well. So Brendon, thank you so much for joining us this evening, as well as sharing insight on the ruling as well as what it could imply for us as everyday South Africans.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Viewers at home, that was our resident tech specialist, Brendon Peterson, telling us all about what could be the future of app stores, and that the doors might be opening for more avenues and more third-party avenues to be involved. So you don't always have to go to Google Play Store or resort to Google services anymore. You can choose others, which is exciting in my opinion.